The hotel has an effective pest control system, but many cardboard cartons which guests bring into the bedrooms contain cockroaches. Management would be most grateful if guests could assist by not introducing cockroaches into the bedrooms in cardboard containers used in packaging, radios, recorders, and other many cardboard cartons which guests into the bedrooms contain cockroaches. Management would be most grateful if guests could assist by not introducing cockroaches into the bedrooms in cardboard containers used in packaging, radios, tape recorders, and other equipment. Human shield. Recapitation therapy operations require 3 components. A. Exoskull visor. Then B. Slotted insertion underlay mask implant. And C. Cavity insulation mummifying bandages. Ordered according to a completely different sequence from predecessors taken over from by exoskull visor, slotted insertion underlay mask implant, and cavity insulation mummifying bandages. The winning formula. Between exoskull visor and slotted insertion underlay mask implant is where cavity insulation mummifying bandages grow, performing emergency, life-saving, miracle cure, cosmetic, plastic surgery, facelift treatment, and healing of injury and symptoms. Poised on standby for attendance to damage repair and mistake correction tasks on exoskull visor and slotted insertion underlay mask implant. Which are gratefully indebted to cavity insulation mummifying bandages for these services rendered. When gift wrapping, the removal time moment of truth is due. Exoskull visor, slotted insertion underlay mask implant, and cavity insulation mummifying bandages come off, break up, flake, crumble, melt, dissolve and evaporate away, each taking the others with them as they go, leaving no trace behind of exoskull visor, slotted insertion underlay mask implant, and cavity insulation mummifying bandages. Destroying the evidence. Acupuncture, bloodletting, fuel refills and injected transfusion encourage slough scales and filleted hides, molted instead by exoskull visor, slotted insertion underlay mask implant and cavity insulation mummifying bandages to mingle together and breathe replacement superior strain of exoskull visor, slotted insertion underlay mask implant and cavity insulation mummifying bandages, giving birth to new and improved selves of their former shadows. Composite of exoskull visor, slotted insertion underlay mask implant and cavity insulation mummifying bandages consume and feed each other and everything else that comes their way. Fusion, uniting exoskull visor, slotted insertion underlay mask implant and cavity insulation mummifying bandages into one whole, linking up to different separate entities they intersect and encounter. A demised premise. Prelude. Disembodied, free and loose, but injured and sickly voices gasp their very last breath. Remains compress, adhere, fuse, solidify and fossilise. Leftovers resurrecting into cadavers and wreckage, which never quite die out. Instead, they stumble, falter, slow down and halt during the course of duty as active bodies and live places, not at standstill. A demised premise. Finale. Substance fatigue claims derelict bodies and dead places. Afflicted victims fracture, shatter, crumble and dissolve until evaporated away. All fumes and sand survived by burns, rust, debris stains, mould, shadows and clouds lurking behind afterwards. Troll, haunt and rain, becoming unhindered meteorological weather. Hospital wards and folding screens are place-setting role model examples to geological and organic buildings and furniture. But beyond that, any further similarity ends there and then. Difference being, fluted, zigzag, buttressed walls are steadfast, here to stay, resistant to all change. Past all-encompassing whalebone ribcage corsetry. After immediate reception bureau and departure lounge, greater depths await. Life and limb threatening infections and wounds attack newly refurbished interior decor flesh tissue. Rehabilitated volunteers and conscripts perform medical treatment. keyhole surgery and organ transplants. Then, this task finished, they nurse patient back to health and fitness again. For safekeeping, extracted sample specimens taken from bodily lymph, volcanic lava and magma pour into phials, vases, urns and amphorae, sealing the lid back down afterwards. These pestle and mortar oysters choke on unexpected owl casts. Trapped fur balls travel around inside them. Coughing fits grant amnesty to jelly marble waxworks and liquid mirror oil droplets. Omnivorous slugs that hungrily grow on and eat up, that actually water and even serve drinks to warm-blooded, roast offal and vintage wine flying carpet. Of choice, favoured by prize-winning silken rosette and heraldry fleur-de-lis. Challenging each other to friendly away. Not in doing mortal combat unto the bitter end in death-defying cat and mouse hide-and-seek aerial dogfights. Up on the ingrowing roof. Weather vane, television antennae, and consumption of imports, turning their hand to churning out indigenous homegrown products instead. Judge Schreiber lived for a long time without a stomach, without intestines, almost without lungs, without an esophagus, without a bladder, and shattered ribs. Sometimes he swallowed part of his own larynx with his food. Personal experiences during the first and the beginning of the second nervous illness. That evening I was given an injection of morphine and for the first time chloral during the night. That night in Chemnitz was also bad. Professor Flexig spoke of the advances made in psychiatry since my first illness, of newly developed sleeping drugs, etc., and gave me hope of delivering me of the whole illness through one prolific sleep, which was to start, if possible, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and last to the following day. However, it was delayed until the 9th hour. More serious symptoms developed again immediately before going to bed. Unfortunately, the bed was cold because it had been aired too long, with the result that I was immediately seized by a severe rigour and was already in a state of great excitement when I took the sleeping drug. Because of this, the sleeping drug failed almost entirely in its effect. Flexix Asylum. Something to make me sleep was eventually given, Necrin or some such name, and I must have fallen asleep for a short while, which, however, no longer strengthened my nerves in any way. On the contrary, my nerves were shattered. Again, the following morning, indeed, so badly that I vomited for breakfast. A particularly terrifying impression was created in me by the totally distorted features which I thought I could see on the attendant R. When I awoke, personal experiences continued. Visions, seer of spirits. 6. The impressions which rushed in upon me was such a wonderful mixture of natural events and happenings of a supernatural nature that it is extremely difficult to distinguish mere dream visions from experiences in a waking state. That is to say, to be certain how far all that I thought I had experienced was in fact historical reality. It is unavoidable. Therefore, that my recollections of the time must in some measure bear the stamp of confusion. The night of 14th to the 15th of March 1900, there was wild play with miracles in my dreams. I eventually made an end to these wild miracles, severely and anxiously disturbing my sleep, by forcing myself to wake up. Completely and turning on the light. It was 11:30 p.m. The door which leads from my room to the corridor was locked, so that nobody could have come in from the outside. From the content of these notes, I will here only quote that according to the visions produced by miracle in my room, an acquaintance of the asylum who I heard opening the door of the living room adjoining my bedroom was partly sitting on my bed, partly getting up to some mischief near my bed, at one time eating smoked tongue or ham with beans. That I saw myself still in the dream vision, having left the bed in order to turn on the light, so that the miraculous visions should cease. Bodily integrity damaged by miracle. Later, for a time, the miracles were in preference directed against my stomach, partly because the souls begrudged me the sensual pleasure connected with the taking of food, partly because they considered themselves superior to human beings, who require earthly nourishments. They therefore tended to look down on all eating and drinking with some disdain. I existed frequently without a stomach. I expressly told the attendant M, as he may remember, that I could not eat because I had no stomach. Sometimes immediately before meals, a stomach was so to speak produced ad hoc by miracles. This was done particularly by Von W.'s soul, which in at least some of its own forms sometimes showed a friendly spirit towards me. Naturally, this never lasted long. His stomach, which had been produced by miracles, in any case only an inferior stomach, was usually removed again miraculously by Von W.'s soul during the meal, because of a change of mind. Great changeability is a marked feature of the soul character. Absolutely divine rays perhaps excluded. Food and drink taken simply poured into the abdominal cavity and into the thighs, a process which, however unbelievable it may sound, was beyond all doubt for me, as I distinctly remember the sensation. Die Krankheit ist disease. Who in spirit of a new disease always shall travel on. From the Patient by Ernst Herbeck Alexander, schizophrenic poet, Lower Austrian Country Hospital for Psychiatry and Neurology, Klosterneuburg, Gugging. The disease. The disease is something miraculous because it is completely dysfunction of human existence and consequently of existentialism. The disease is in no way a reflection of social conditions. The arms of each system grab beside him his only potential civility and relates to the virus, the germs and proliferating cells working on excavation. Everyone who is seized with his dis-ease hates anything blooming, fresh, vivacious, strong and healthy. He abhors loud, laughing, vital, red-cheeked and life-accepting people. He wishes to all humans around him, be they healthy or struck by their ridiculous imaginary illnesses, a fast, rapid, surprising decay and death. There would be more variation then in the environment of the diseased, for the diseased himself cannot simply die. The disease needs his always growing, weaker life energy, never letting it extinguish, so it can spread, hollow out in its victim, take always more and more, and finally completely take possession of it. The diseased is no longer master of his thoughts, emotions and desires. He becomes a slave of his mutated senses and body organs, emotions, as love, sex, tenderness, compassion, sorrow and sensibility he sees with disdain because he is the hero. Each diseased is a hero full of the nobles, but feelings and yearnings, for pain, for death, for needles of ice and flashes of fire, for purifying and existence-erasing processes. But all this he will not experience himself, for he is assigned to a protracting and irresistible languishing. Almost never an agonizing pain, almost all the time only a constant, almost steady, gnawing, throbbing, oppressive, distorting grief, leaving behind holes of fear. So it is the function of the diseased to grant his ideals to others, to eliminate and immobilize his surroundings. Disease has managed to return the original function defined by its nature to every molecule, every atom, every electron of the human body, to feel pain. The diseased is full of repulsion, the always audible sing-song of the diseased. The disease obliges to a rigorously monastic life, to quiet enclosure. December 28th. 8:30 appointments. 8:30 scalded. Memoranda artificially. 9 o'clock medical. Memoranda appliance. 9:30 injection. Memoranda abdominal. 10 o'clock agony. Memoranda ailments. 10:30 complaint. Anemic. 11 o'clock penicillin. Memoranda clinic. 11:30 unconscious. Memoranda surgical. 12 o'clock bandage. Memoranda epidemic. 12:30 sciatica. Memoranda pneumonia. 1 o'clock examination. Memoranda chronic. 1:30 accident. Memoranda critically. 2 o'clock unconsciously. Memoranda physicians. 2:30 authorities. Memoranda invitation. 3 o'clock approval. Memoranda peritonitis. 3:30 appendicitis. Memoranda pneumonia. 4 o'clock anemia. Memoranda morphia. 4:30 aching. Memoranda pleurisy. 5 o'clock artificial. Memoranda temperature. 5 o'clock artificial. Memoranda temperature. 5:30 appendix. Memoranda rheumatic. 6 o'clock accident. Memoranda feverish. Ambulances sneezing. Accidentally symptoms. December 29th. 8:30 influenza. Memoranda advises. 9 o'clock sweats. Memoranda prescription. 9:30 aching. Memoranda temperature. 10 o'clock limbs. Memoranda depression. 10:30 shivers. Memoranda approved. 11:30 generalised. Memoranda relieved. 11:30 continue. Memoranda paralysis. 11:30 frequently. Memoranda, swinging. 12:30, nothing. Memoranda, swinger. 11. 1 o'clock, epidemic. Memoranda, glycerine. 1:30, emergency. Memoranda, sulfur. 2 o'clock, disease. Memoranda, collapsed. 2:30, diagnosed. Memoranda, dislocation. Leukemia of the blood behind the water. 3:30, paralysis. 4 o'clock, fleeting.